Hello, horror fan best friends and ghoulish knights, and welcome to the 37th episode of Murders with Mertens. I am your host, Joe, and this is a podcast about horror.
What, in a row? 37 in a row?
Hey, you, get over here. Comedy horror, body horror, folk horror, sci-fi horror, the horror-adjacent thrillers, the psychologically terrifying, scary films in general. Each episode, I sit down with a guest and discuss one of their favorite scary films so we can gush about everything that makes it just so damned cool. Viewers, thank you for the support. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you are so inclined. It all helps to get the word out and bring some much-needed love to this little podcast. Audio listeners, the show is also available on podcast services around the world like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So don't forget to leave a rating when you stop by. 5 stars is always appreciated. But enough of all that housekeeping, because today I have the privilege of welcoming back for his third appearance, Mark Freeman. Mark, how the hell are you?
I'm not too bad. I'm in holiday mode.
Nice.
Got the recap juice ready.
Cool.
Off to New York at the end of the week.
Nice. Well, first of all, I knew that I would get a never-ending amount of shit for not having you on episode 37, especially after
I backseed episode 37 before the podcast even existed or was named or whatever.
That sounds about right. Sounds about right.
Have me on for
well, especially after you tricked yourself into coming on for Scream 3. So,
no, you tricked me.
Nah, not at all, man. You just misremembered.
Because I merged like the Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back scenes with the Scream scene.
Yeah, which is easy to do because I was doing that myself before I rewatched that film. It's a good thing that movie is actually kind of, campy fun. So,
what was it, 12 seconds or something?
Yeah, pretty much. But
12 or 15 seconds, I was so livid.
Like I said, it's a good thing that movie is kind of goofy fun to begin with. So otherwise, yeah. But very, very happy to have you back on because especially, episode 37, of course, we have to do something else Kevin Smith related. Today's film is the 2014 comedy/body horror film Tusk, written and directed by Kevin Smith and starring Michael Parks and Justin Long. This is the first film of Smith's True North trilogy. And it sounds like probably next year, the way things are going for Moose Jaws. Yeah. Very much looking forward to that because I believe it or not, I have not seen Yoga Hosers. I just have not gotten around to that one. But
now, after watching this, you need to see the spin-off.
Yeah, because of not only the same stable of actors, but also a lot of the same characters coming back. But yeah, I'll get around to it eventually, and especially before Moose Jaws. But Moose Jaws just seems a little bit more up my alley. We'll find out.
Yeah, four of the characters from this film, at least, like in main roles as opposed to guest roles. I believe some other ones make guest roles, but
yeah, and at least a lot of the same actors, so it'll be good, or at least fun. Maybe not good, but at least fun.
Fight Harley as well. Yeah.
But Mark, top level thoughts about Tusk?
I mean, it's similar to Red State. The film is absolutely carried on its shoulders by Michael Parks and the most amazing, creepy, not creepy, but then suddenly creep, like the way he walks that line and just twists and opens and is just.
I'll tell you, I was pleasantly surprised because this is the second time that I've seen this. I saw it probably when it first came to home video in one form or another, and have not seen it since. But I really appreciated this rewatch, and I'll tell you, I really appreciated Justin Long's performance in this one.
Exclusive. Sorry to promote another podcast, but a podcast I believe we both love. We got an exclusive from Josh Rouse. Dr. Josh Rouse on Out of Our League podcast. 2 weeks before the filming of this started, Michael Parks had a heart attack. I believe, or 2 months, something
Something along those lines. Yeah.
Josh Roush was literally there as the make sure Michael Parks doesn't fall over kind of, and like to just make sure he was all right and keep him healthy and safe, but did not want anyone to know about it, etc. And had some vocal issues, everything, but like you could not tell. I watched this film, you could not tell in the slightest in his performance. And then like he was having trouble walking and stuff, and plays into some of the other stuff in the film. But
yeah, it's a good thing he's sitting down for about half of his performance.
But when he's doing it, like when he's walking, it's like it's so I mean, Justin Long, everyone in it, Gila Point, again, I'm going to have to spoil one of the best bits of Yoga Hosers later, but
that's all right. That's all right. I just don't know that it will be that spoiled ultimately for me.
No, it won't be. Don't worry. But it's probably one of the funniest parts of Yoga Hosers is something to do with Gila Point. And probably what you didn't notice in this film, that then gets very much accentuated in the next film, thanks to him bringing his own makeup artist to do it.
Well, Mark, one thing I got to say about this film compared with Red State is just how much of a better looking film this ultimately is. I honestly think that this is so much
more to your sensibilities.
It's just a better shot film ultimately.
But I think Red State is amazingly shot. It's that different kind of, this is shot pure horror. It's got those classic horror sort of amazing shots, like the.
I think there's just a very specific look to this film that
Red State was fairly kinetic.
Kinetic
shots, etc.
Not to mention the fact that I think Red State just, I don't know, it felt like it was maybe just on the tail end of that. This was shot on digital video type of look from that era. I don't know, but maybe. Yeah.
Also, come on. This is fucking a Kevin fucking Smith film.
Oh yeah, and I don't think this
Red State. You were like, "What the hell? This is a Kevin Smith film." Now you're like,
and maybe just because this was a nice A24 release, which I do not remember this being, but it definitely seems to fit that A24 mold just a little bit more. But
again, he knows where to get his money from.
You know it. But I appreciated this watch so much more.
The people who put money into this film make a lot of money. Again, Kevin Smith, the best investment in films.
Yeah.
Just because you guaranteed a return. He asked for such a small budget. You don't make masses, you don't make hundreds of millions, but return on investment, fantastic. And pretty much guaranteed.
Yeah.
I really hope A24 do Moose Jaws, because can you just imagine an A24? Because it'll just go out. People he'll probably remove his name from it. Whatever, on the first trailer, just get a A24 Moose Jaws trailer. There'll just be so many people not watching it that don't realize it's a Kevin Smith film and be like, "Wow, a film about Jaws on land with a moose in Canada." From A24? Yeah,
sign me up. Absolutely.
And then a film by Kevin Smith. What?
Yep, exactly.
Can't be that Kevin Smith. Literally that Kevin Smith on everything.
Well, as chatty as the original Jaws was, ultimately, this'll work. I'm looking forward to it. It's all in good time. We've got two different strikes still going, the writers and the actors, and wish them all the best. But
I am hoping to go to the picket line next Wednesday outside 30 Rock.
Nice.
And I looked it up. They don't start. They only do Wednesday to Friday in New York. So
okay,
it's my only opportunity to go. But take him some water or something.
Yeah, well, solidarity, brother. That's
Yep.
I
And
appreciate the
screw you,
gesture.
NBC, for what you did to all of my favourite shows during the previous writer's strike.
Yeah, there was that. Chuck definitely suffered a little bit. So did Heroes. It's
I might get some poster board and take a Chuck side.
there you go.
Screw you for what you did to Chuck.
Well, just like boy, I can't believe I had never heard the story, but I found a new hate for Bob Iger just because of finding out what he did in the second season of Twin Peaks. He's the one that forced the show to basically reveal Laura Palmer's killer and ruined the second season because there was no point any longer.
Oh, damn.
Doesn't
I've
that
only watched the first
suck?
season.
Doesn't that suck?
I've only watched the first season.
Well, ultimately, there's a lot of fun stuff in the second season.
Who it was? So.
No. There's a lot of fun still in the second season, but yeah, it just loses its momentum up until like the very end of that season. So it's still worth a watch, but just understand there's going to be a little bit of a lull for a bit. But yeah, this is not a David Lynch podcast. This is a Kevin Smith podcast right now. Mark, what do you say we hop in?
Open with seagulls.
Yeah. Yes. And
Which
a nice reminder that this is an A24 release, which you were not expecting unless you were just a little bit more in the know about this film. But
I didn't notice. Because I'm not a horror fan. I have one here to
not that they're exclusively horror. They're just well known for a lot of their horror films. But yeah, we get the typical podcast banter and laughter for
seagulls are not part of the podcast.
No,
like that sound fades out.
Yep. And you get your typical laughter and cutting up of podcast banter for NotSeeParty.com. That's NOTSEE. Not to, be confused with,
loads of basically Kevin Smith artwork for Fat Man Beyond, Babylon, and all the rest of it repurposed to be for their
we are introduced to our hosts Wallace and Teddy, played by Justin Long and Haley Joel Osment,
on actual events.
Yes. Yeah, kind of.
It is based on actual events in a way, but
in a way.
A bullshit way.
Yeah. So yeah, we get these two doing their typical bullshit podcast stuff that we are very, very used to at this point in time. And we shift to sort of an Internet Explorer style segment where they're about to watch a video that someone has submitted to them. And we get
one of their t-shirts.
Yeah.
So you're wearing the same t-shirt as one of the podcast hosts, etc., which is also a rip on the Kevin Smith Sir t-shirt, I believe, for like his podcast network t-shirt.
Yep.
Same colors.
We are introduced to the Kill Bill Kid, which is clearly a riff on the Star Wars Kid. We all remember that one. But yeah, we get this dude in his garage swinging a katana around and ultimately lops his own leg off. And the look on his face, it's just a couple of seconds after it happens when he realizes what he's done and he starts to fall forward. It's just absolutely perfect. I love it.
Literally in credits, there was literally a whole company did this video. It was like a whole thing. It was just done so perfect again.
Oh, and it looks great.
Kevin Smith film, you're like, what? Huh? Like this, what? Again, perfectly done, like perfect internet video, every single thing, and then like really realistic, like for its time and era, like CGI and all the rest of it. It's not like doesn't look like it's a prank video from one of their followers that they've done the digital things of. Looks like a real video.
Yeah, it's introduced
really
with some,
in that point. It would be.
It's introduced with some tests that it
would be submitting them faked videos. Or
right. It's introduced with a little bit of text in the video that it was found on a laptop that was bought at like a yard sale or something in Winnipeg.
Which doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Unless he was like selling some of his stuff for
But no, why would he be wearing one of their t-shirts? If he were, if then he felt like he would have submitted that video to them. Like if one of us did that, something that ridiculous, we'd be submitting it to Internet Explorers.
I mean, we would, but
come on.
roughly 10 years ago, I don't know about that.
But again, like the podcast clearly was about them watching videos and all the rest of it, because there's the other bit later on about them watching his first stand-up and all the rest of it. So
oh, yeah.
It would be like Internet. We would be submitting if we did something. Okay,
now,
not
again,
going to chop off our own leg. If we did something of that caliber, we would be submitting that as a fun clip. We'd be paying the $5 to Super Chat or whatever to submit that as a fun clip.
And again, we would, but we'll get to a moment a bit later where we realize how messed up and despondent this kid ultimately was about the whole situation. But
yeah, again, other things later on about turn down Oprah Winfrey, like implies very much to what I'm saying, I think.
Yes, I don't know. But ultimately, they dog on this poor kid and mention that Wallace is going to be flying to Canada the next day to interview the Kill Bill kid. Basically, that's the whole conceit of this show. He flies and travels out to different areas to interview goofy, weird, or interesting people. And then he brings the stories back to Teddy, who ultimately does not travel. And the title of the show, The Nazi Party, is because he does not see these people. It's all secondhand information, ultimately. But
and a good premise for a podcast of someone goes see something and then comes back to explain it to the other person. Because if both of them went, it wouldn't.
Right.
Probably wouldn't work as well as a conversation on a podcast.
No, not at all. And it does kind of feel like a podcast from 10 years ago, too. It just...
yeah, but I mean, come on. Like, if anyone's going to nail podcasting in a film, it's going to be the podfather himself, Kevin Smith.
Yes.
Who was doing it before Joe Rogan.
Yep.
Before, like, he's like one of the first 2 or 3 people doing podcasts, because he went on someone's podcast and went, wait, you can do this, like, what, you can do this? Like, it doesn't have to go on the radio. People can didn't realize about server farms. That's why what's it called? The thing, his first sponsor car.
But ultimately, we cut to Wallace the next day. He's in Canada. He's dealing with the border agent. Harley from Epic Meantime. They compare
pizza with
nice
KFL 3. And it was like, the queue for wings is way too long. Like, I'm gonna go get some pizza because I've been there a year before, like drinking wine, pizza, and then go and join the queue. So that when I actually get to the front, I'll be hungry.
So
go down there, good in the pizza shop. Harley walks in behind. Like,
he's a massive dude too.
And he walks up and goes, "What's the largest pizzas you know?" Okay, I'll take 3 of them. Nice. Like, gives us the money, walks off. Like, he obviously goes back to hang out with the people, then stood there in the shop with the people. It's like, do you realise who that is? That's a bloke from Epic Mealtime. One of the chefs from out the back comes running out, going, "What?
Uh-huh.
And then takes pictures and stuff, and I get free drinks for the rest of the time I'm there.
Nice.
But I know I had a nice, when he came back to get the pizza, I had a nice little chat with him as well. Lovely dude.
Very cool. Very cool. They compare facial hair, and Wallace commits the faux pas of admitting to a Canadian that he does not follow hockey. And we get into Canada's and Canadites. Great exchange between them. We get the whole, we're not nice, we're optimistic. There's a difference line.
Red, white, but never blue.
Yep. They're never
noticed is all over the film. Yeah. T-shirts in the shop, all sorts of things.
And this is where Wallace describes the conceit of the podcast too. the border agent, and how he travels to weird or interesting people and brings the story back to his partner, who does not see it because he won't travel. And as soon as Nazi party comes up,
Don't say Hitler in an airport.
yeah, don't say Hitler in an airport. And
also, what?
But ultimately, yeah, we get to right away Wallace pulling up to the Kill Bill kid's house in his rental car. And
do we not? We cut to the. Did he not go to the bar first? Oh no,
no, the bar's afterwards. Because he's getting out of the car and he sees he's getting a call from Allie. Yep.
Where's the ringtone from?
Oh, I don't know what it's from, but ultimately it's one of those
from Hollywood Babylon
ones. Gotcha.
No, it's from Hollywood Babylon. It's a Ralph Garman joint of him doing Al Pacino. Yeah, Al Pacino or one of them like doing that song.
But yeah, ultimately it's a call from his girlfriend Allie that he just sends right to voicemail. We're very, very quickly realizing how much of a dick
we got at the time is. Good idea. Good idea that the voicemail as opposed to walking up.
He didn't realize quite yet what he was getting into when he sent that call to voicemail, because it's afterwards that he walks towards the front porch and sees a wreath there. And he's like, fuck.
Flowers.
Yeah. And he starts walking around to the side of the house where he finds a bunch of cars and, maybe not
but also, when he's seen the flowers, like,
yeah.
No, like,
well, he at least understands there's been a death.
Maybe don't introduce yourself that way.
Yeah, because it's not until the not quite 20 mourners there part ways and he sees the wheelchair with the kid's photo and some flowers that he truly understands what has happened. And they.
So one of my complaints about this film, like all about this Star Wars kid here, because again, it's kind of funny we're coming to my house to record a podcast with me. I'm probably killing myself the next day. Like
maybe he had already booked the thing, but I mean, we got to remember they were dogging on him like crazy on the podcast the day before he got there. So in between
I know
booking,
Kevin's gonna take this shit out. Like I know Kevin's gonna just be like laying into me for 2 weeks before he shows up here.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, we get that part of the joke, but this kid was obviously despondent and ultimately killed himself with the same katana. Which where'd
you get that detail from?
I thought that was somewhere there, but
I didn't get that detail.
Regardless, he kills himself and he basically tells his buddy Teddy about this in a rambling voicemail at the bar that night, where he just
a moose on the wall framed in a very horror way when he opens on the moose and comes out.
The moose. This is where we get Wallace just basically being one of the worst Americans you can possibly be in a foreign country. Just wow. It's shocking that he didn't get, into a fight or something at this bar.
He's in Canada. How would he?
Dude, you've never seen Letterkenny, have you?
No, I'm joking. I'm just playing into the.
Remember, they're not nice. They're optimistic. There's a difference.
That is a really good way of.
Oh, absolutely.
Talking about Canadians. Again, Kevin Smith has a massive affinity for Canadians and Canadian culture.
But he's doing some fetching into this voicemail about how he spent all this money on the ticket and it's a worthless trip unless he can find somebody else to interview. He's not a happy man there. And absolutely obnoxious. Just laying into the typical American opinions about little bits of Canadian speech and culture. And again, really surprised nobody decided to pick a fight with him at this bar. But jump right from that to him standing at the urinal and looks up, and what does he see? Oh, that handbill talking about sharing adventures.
that voice,
Mm-hmm.
his
Mm-hmm.
lyrical voice that like kicks in of the Michael Parks.
Yep. We get the
And he's
narration.
going to enthrall you with a sentence.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If I
Yeah.
say that sentence, no one's going to give it. If he says that sentence,
Yep. You're listening. Absolutely. Yeah. We basically the narration from the handbill is that he offers lodging to somebody, in exchange for being regaled with tales of adventure. All the person basically has to do is, help him maintain his home a little bit because he's infirm, he's in a wheelchair. We get this as Teddy, or not Teddy, Wallace is doing some traveling. We're getting him stopping at the A to Z.
So do we want to insert this here or at the end of where the real where this all comes from?
I mean, you can go ahead and spell this out here pretty quick.
Into what the thing of the crux of this, how this movie comes about.
Yeah,
so
we may as well jump into it now. We don't get all the narration until after he leaves the A to Z, but yeah, we may as well get into it. Go ahead, Mark.
There's a lot about in the A to Z that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
so episode 257 of Smodcast, The Walrus and the Carpenter. A fantastic and infamous episode where him and his longtime producer at this point, now, well respected director of his own right, thankfully, because they went to film school together, and whoever wrote the script to their first movie, the other would be the producer for them. Because Kevin quit and did it first, then Scott became a producer, and the rest of it. Clerks 3, love letters, Scott Mosier. We'll get into that later. So they are reading a advert for a Gumtree on Gumtree, which is basically Craigslist in the UK. And which is for a room to rent in Brighton, which, if you're not within the UK, that is a fairly expensive city to live in. Not as expensive as London, but close. And more a funky London than, close to London and funky, etc. Really up and coming place, etc. Overlooking Queen's Park, which also is like Hyde Park in London or whatever, or Central Park in New York. So a really cool place to live in Brighton for a free room, as long as, once you read you spend 2 hours a day, brackets on average, later revealed on average, dressed up as a walrus, for which you get free run of the house, except for his bedroom and his workshop. He has a fairly impressive, realistic walrus costume that will fit most humans. Kevin Smith makes a joke about not fitting him at the time. Would fit him now. So you just have to do that. You're not allowed to speak. You can go online and hear sounds of walruses, but you need to be able to do a fairly realistic walrus thing. And then he's going to hold auditions, and the lucky candidate will get the room. It's also available to couples, but it's implied very much that the man will be the walrus, etc. And yes, so
I think it's at this point, Mark, that we need to talk about why you're wearing the shirt that you are and not something else.
I did try and Amazon myself an inflatable walrus costume in time for this podcast, but it wasn't going to show up in time, so I opted for yes, I really need all these walrus.
Yup.
T-shirt.
The walrus costume was not meant to be, and it might be for the best.
Spawned them talking about the majority, so much of this film. They literally just sit there and just scope. Oh, we're going to make this horror film, and it's going to be this. A few things that they say. We're not going to cut to the outside because that would be crap. We only want to see in there. Obviously, they had to in order to get the third act tension and all the rest of it.
Mhm.
But yeah, they just sit there for like an hour doing this. At which point they come up with the hashtag Walrus yes and Walrus no. If you wanted the film, you had to tweet Walrus yes. If you didn't want the film, you had to tweet Walrus no. The fable is that afterwards there was a sea of Walruses yes, but there was only one no. Walrus yes is really Walrus no is really Walrus yes, but I believe in the democratic process, so I need to offer a dissenting voice.
That's good.
So
that's wonderful.
Kevin Smith got stoned, talked to his mate, and this film exists because of it. And the people that posted that fake Gumtree ad are producers on this and were flown out, etc. To like they went into it, and I think they've got some small performances, but I couldn't work out where they were in the film. Gotcha. Like a small cameo.
Oh God, it's so perfect, Mark, because the ad absolutely reads like a setup for a horror film. I mean, come on, or a weird sex thing. But ultimately,
it was. Yeah, it was. And it was so politely written.
Yeah.
And he then like by the time they were reading it, he then posted this really nice message about, I'm really sorry, but for all of your interest, I haven't been able to reply to all your message because I got so much interest, but just to update you, like I found the person to rent the room. I really hope that you find somewhere to live soon. Like, so polite, British polite, like elder gentleman, like politeness.
Oh, it's so fucked. I love it.
Yep.
Oh God. Yes. So we cut from here to Wallace on the phone with a Mr. Howe while he is at the A to Z, the convenience store, getting, one of those massive soft drinks that you tend to when you're in a place like that. It's here where we're introduced to the young ladies who will go on to star in both Yoga Hosers and the upcoming Moose Jaws. Yes, we have Lily Rose Depp and Harley Quinn Smith. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who are childhood friends, best friends, etc. Like literally, it was just like Kevin Smith. I need two teenagers. Oh, she's always around. Let's grab let's put her and Harley in it. Like,
and it's perfect because they played the perfect quintessential disinterested teenagers who are on their phones for the entire exchange.
You're gonna love Yoga Host.
I do need to watch it at some point. It's just I remember at the time I'm like, I don't need to watch this, but maybe perhaps I do.
Again, like all of these films, like don't go in expecting necessarily what you want, from a Kevin Smith film. It's not going to be the greatest movie of all time, Clerks 3. It's but it's going to be a really interesting film. It's going to really surprise you.
I will at least chuckle a few times, I am sure. But I got to get around to it eventually.
Both of them share, both of them have Robert Kirkman as their the famed special effects person doing all of their stuff for it.
Nice, very nice. This is where he gets basically directions. He finds out that the guy lives in Bifrost, which is a couple hours away, and he's like, "Ooh, Bifrost sounds erotic."
Obviously, Marvel reference.
Yeah, a little bit there, a little bit. He just continues to be a dick to everybody involved, and I love how
the female shop is also in. Yeah.
I'm sure that she is. It's one of those things too. This happens multiple times in this film where you get this little exchange, but it's not the full exchange, or it could be that the main exchange is from an unreliable narrator later on. it could easily be either. But yeah, it's a little bit of a briefer version of him interacting with these girls. But he's again the typical American dick abroad. And he drives off, and we get and we get more of Howe's narration from the flyer as he drives, and he makes it to Pippy Hill, Howard Howe's stately manor off in the woods somewhere in Bifrost, Manitoba. Yeah. And it's one of those situations where you can't park super close to the house. He's got all these stairs he's got to climb, and clearly he's freezing and he has to piss like crazy. And he just kind of bursts into the house and calls out hello. No knocking, no ringing a bell, none of that stuff. But of course, he knows he's expected. Somebody opened the gate for him. They meet each other upstairs. Wallace is there in a wheelchair in front of this roaring fire, and he offers him tea, but first he's got to use the head. He's got to piss like a racehorse.
The first thing he does is offer him tea.
Yep.
Or the minute he gets the opportunity to, he's offered.
Yep. So in the what the Canadians would call the washroom, but it's funny, he refers to it as a water closet instead, which it very much is. It's not a full bath, but yeah, we've got that really creepy toilet paper cozy staring at him as he pees, and just kind of turn that around.
Is that a thing over there?
It's like an old person thing. You don't see it very often, but it is a thing.
When you go to your grands or somewhere, house or whatever, auntie, whoever.
It's a nice way to have that extra roll somewhere handy without it just being a roll of toilet paper sitting there on the back of the toilet.
Yeah.
But
with the blacked out eyes.
Oh, I know, those dead eyes like a doll's.
But again, at this point, it doesn't seem like a horror film.
Yeah, right? I mean, other than him just
hinges, but there isn't. Other than if you hadn't put A24, if you just had
and again,
productions,
A24 isn't exclusively known for horror films, and they sure as shit weren't back in 2014.
Oh, weren't they? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they've definitely become known for sort of like highbrow horror films anymore.
Well, high quality indie, with amazing premises and all the rest of it. Films that you need to watch.
But roughly 10 years ago,
if you're like me, no.
Yeah, Mark, stay away from Talk to Me. You are not going to enjoy that film. I loved it, but
it's sadistic.
Oh yeah. But 10 years ago, not so much. And he comes back out, and they kind of, start getting to know each other a little bit. He pours him some tea, which clearly he enjoys right away.
Again, the minute he's walking into the room, he's pouring tea for him.
Yep. And it's like you get a sense of what's going on, but also not so much. We'll get there.
And then he starts giving a podcast to his wet dreams.
Yeah.
Talking about Ernest Hemingway.
And they kind of bond a little bit over flatulence. Both Howe's former wife and Wallace's either his grandmother or his mother. I can't quite recall. But he explains to Howard about his podcast, having to, they cut to a flashback from the show with, it's gross. Yeah. But you cut back to how you're able to do all this stuff, no repercussions. Okay. And to Wallace explaining what this podcast is and what a podcast is in general to him is like having to explain this stuff to his mother, but
And then he mentions about how good the tea is. right?
Yeah.
Was the
Over and
transition.
over, he's very pleased with this tea. He's never quite had tea like this.
Then he obviously offers up, well, you have to steep the leaves in brandy before you whatever do it. Ernest Hemingway, yeah, or never do anything drunk that you wouldn't do so, or no, never do.
Yeah, always do sober what you do drunk. That'll teach you to keep your mouth shut. Which is a quote that's attributed to Hemingway, yes. But yeah, he's like, hey, I know that one. That's Hemingway, right? And he's like, yeah, Hemingway said that to me. And he goes
The
on
irony
this.
is, like the real like mirroring of real life.
Mhm.
Like Michael Parks, like all of the Jeff Rowell, Kevin Saint, like everyone that's like he would do that to you. B. Clark Gable said this, like had such a life, and I cannot wait. And I was a bit annoyed that I didn't make it out to New York in January to see the rough cut of Lonesome Highway.
Yeah.
I can't wait once he finally gets Quentin for it to be released. The story of Michael, like he has such a history. He got blackballed by Hollywood. Then Quentin got him into From Dawn Till Dusk, and then did these last, finally, managed to have this redemption arc with Kevin and all the rest of it. Like, but had that best story. It's like the talking to Josh.
Dude, live the life. Like I said,
he just dropped the biggest fucking name imaginable. You just be like, what? Oh yeah, Clark Gable said this to me. Or whoever, like, Charlton Heston, like, taught Johnny Depp to ride a motorcycle on TV. I know, taught Johnny Cash to ride a motorcycle on the Johnny Cash show, like, because he was a country singer. He was a famous country singer, yeah. So,
yeah, the dude is a rich and interesting character for sure. But yeah, he starts to tell him the story of how, Hemingway was on this vessel before D-Day. It was actually Operation Neptune, because he wasn't allowed to be there on the beach because he was considered
Operation Neptune was before D-Day, I believe, or something. It was different from D-Day. That it wasn't.
He was on basically it was a scouting vessel, and he was not allowed to be there. Well, Hemingway was kind of pissed about this, and so, he, went to go find some solace somewhere. What did he find? But a 16-year-old Howe, who was on KP duty peeling potatoes, and he offered him some whiskey, and they shared that bottle, and, good conversation. And ultimately, Wallace looks up and he sees this empty whiskey bottle, and he's like,
no, but there's also, before that, there's a moment with like Parks about talking about all of the people that didn't come back.
Because the next day it was ultimately the invasion, and they got the reports, and it was rough. It was rough, but he sees the bottle and he's like, hey, to some it's just an empty whiskey bottle, but when you can combine it with the story and the experience, it becomes so much more, right? And he's got all these cool artifacts just everywhere in the room, and this is where Wallace's attention is drawn to something over the fireplace. Ultimately, it is a walrus stick bone. We'll just leave it at that.
I didn't know about this. Do, like, most other mammals, other than like the whatever, have stick bones?
I guess. But and of course, Wallace is like all about this, because
imagine if that breaks. That's gotta be. Oh,
yup. That's
sorry for that image.
Nope. We're all thinking it, Mark. Don't worry. But and of course Wallace is like extra gross with this thing as he's handling it. That's
and then we get the transition where we get the thing to the conversation with his girlfriend. Is that here? Yeah.
Not quite yet. We get Howard starting to tell the story of what was it, the SS Anastasia,
Oh yes, we start to get the walrus.
And we start getting the walrus story. And here's where you start noticing that Wallace is starting to get a little drowsy. You know, it's just brilliant
He's
acting.
still drinking the tea more.
He's still drinking the tea. He's still engaging Howard with the conversation. But yeah, you definitely notice that something's up. And the story goes on about how the vessel went down and ultimately Howard found himself. They were hunting a great white. Yeah.
The northern white or whatever it was. Something. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great white, but it was
something to do with the in Russia, the Russian great white or whatever that was like 30 meters long or something. Yeah.
Yeah, how it's described is very similar to how the shark is described in Jaws, because obviously they want to have that little connection.
I mean,
there.
Kevin Smith
Yep.
loves to put a Jaws reference in. Just look
You know it. You know it. So ultimately, yes, the vessel goes down and Howard is, sort of lost at sea with no one else. And he, comes to a little rocky outcropping and
he starts swimming away.
Well, there's the talk about how there's something in the water and he hopes that it's something going after his crewmates.
And he hoped that it got its fill from the rest of his crewmates or whatever.
Yeah, again, very, very similar to the USS Indianapolis monologue. But yeah, he does find his way to shore at one point or another. This little rocky outcropping.
He passes out and wakes up on the rocky outcrop.
Yeah, but regardless, he does make it there eventually. And what does he find? Oh, he finds one of the most beautiful things he's ever seen. Mr. Tusk, so named after an authority figure from the boys' home he grew up in, Mr. Tuskegee.
Yeah, that's going to come back.
Yep.
Originally, it was meant to be Gregory. Was it from the podcast? The name of the horse was Gregory.
Oh, that's
just some of their phrases, But I think Mr. Tusk works a lot better.
Oh, it's just perfect, isn't it?
The title of the film was also meant to be The Walrus and the Carpenter, but
right.
For a horror film with the poster with Tusk and the Tusk with the blood.
Yep.
So it works so much better.
Yep, and he's just Wallace is just
probably have a copyright on Walrus and Carpenter.
yeah. So Wallace is absolutely enthralled by this story, but as it goes on, we see that his vision is starting to blur as well, and he's understanding, oh shit, there was something in the tea. And I love the way he ultimately collapses. Kind of face plants, but also kicks the chair out from under him. It's
they'd done it a few times. Yeah, you thought you might before as well. It was very well played, I think. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and we get from Howard. What does he say? There, it'll be all right. Oh, so creepy.
That man can just enthrall you and then just make the hairs on the back of your spine crawl.
Oh yeah,
in the same sentence.
Yep.
The tiniest difference of inflection or whatever.
Yep. And this is where we get the flashback to the prior day with Wallace and his girlfriend.
2 days ago, I think. 2 days ago, wouldn't it be? Because it would have been day one, would have been the. Oh, I know, Pride.
No, it's the same day.
That would have all been in one day.
Yeah, everything is really transpired in a fairly tight time frame here. But in a somewhat intimate moment. Yeah. Well, also just her being upset with him that he's, just kind of in some ways taking advantage of this poor kid, and it's just degrading.
Degrading. I think it's more the point that going there to make fun of it. It's like
there's also
going to go and make fun of him to his face or whatever.
There's also something quite poetic about this edgelord being unhappily edged in this scene. Yes, because she's withholding from him because she's so upset with him about all of this. But yes, he is exploiting this kid, even though he denies it because, he turned down Oprah for me. Um, yeah, yeah. And then we get him just
Yes.
kind
See,
of like,
that's the bit which makes about the timeline that just and the video, like that extra bit of cherry on the top of he turned down Oprah for me. Like,
yeah,
but anyway, it's a Kevin
but
Smith film. Let's not pick it apart too much.
yeah. And this is where they kind of go back and forth about old Wallace and new Wallace. And
Yeah.
he's just extra gross about new Wallace and, how much money he's made off of new Wallace and, how old Wallace was so
But
pathetic.
still at this point, you can still side with him a little bit. Like, it's not, like, hasn't gone full villain.
Yes.
Whatever.
But yeah, it's, what did old Wallace ever have? And then, she makes the comment, well, old Wallace had me. And well, wow, you feel for her in that moment. Yeah, but him just going on and on about New Wallace is absolutely disgusting. And also still wanting a little bit of release from her. Yeah, it's a lot. And you also get him in this moment talking about Teddy, and in typical Kevin Smith fashion, it is absolutely clear how much he's in love with Teddy as well. Just the way he's describing him and talking about him, it's he absolutely loves the man.
No, but he's putting him down. Like, I get and
putting him down, but also it's like just the way that he speaks about him. It's like, yeah, and I don't mean like romantic love, but yeah.
He's possibly using him as an excuse. There's other
as to why she can't come with, even though we learn very, very quickly why he wants to be alone. But yeah. And then wakey.
Well, no. So no, I think this was one of the great transitions of this film. Obviously, of him lying back on the bed, finally maybe getting his release.
Yeah.
Cut to him.
Yeah, being woken up. Yeah. We got Howard way off in the corner polishing a bone as Wallace comes to. And then, this is one of those moments where I got to comment about how well this film is shot. The great big, like solarium or whatever you call it, sunroom, where you've got Wallace in the wheelchair, just completely out of it, while Howard just stares at him polishing this bone that does in fact look a bit like a tusk. And we'll get to that eventually here. But yeah, this is where I will continue to comment about how this is like one of the best looking Kevin Smith films as far as how it's been shot. But yeah, so Wallace is very much out of it at this point, and Howard tells him that he was bitten by a brown recluse, which I thought were found in far warmer climes than Manitoba, but whatever.
I mean, it's a real spider, is it?
It is, but yeah, I thought they were quite a bit more southern locations. Perhaps not. I don't know.
Again, I'm English. Don't like poisonous spiders.
It is definitely a spider that you do not want to mess with. I know that much, but you don't
have those.
Yeah. We're not as bad as Australia, but we do have a few critters that you do not want to mess with. That's for sure. We
get this. It's adders.
Yeah. Don't need those either. Don't need those.
Yeah, but they're not. Like, you're not dying from one, Joe, unless you don't get treatment.
So we get the story from Howard that, he was bitten by a spider, and ultimately, the local doctor came over. He's one of his neighbors, and I can't remember the name, but it's a name that will come back a little bit later.
And as do many of the details.
Oh yes. And no, he can't make a call because unfortunately the doctor stepped on your phone. It's in pieces. I'm sorry. And yeah, I mean, the doctor had to take some drastic measures there. And this is where,
And I know, but also, do we not hear before, like, oh yeah, he removed all of the phones from the house?
no,
Which
we get
point
that
he
a
was,
little bit later.
it's a bit later, and it's like
In the conversation, same conversation, but just a little bit later, because ultimately, yeah, we discover there's no leg there. And he starts having his massive freak out because, of course, he's missing a leg at this point.
Why am I not at the hospital?
Yeah, exactly. All valid questions. All valid questions.
I think also I would be freaking out a lot sooner in this conversation.
Yeah.
Like, I would not be accepting a lot of these answers.
And I don't know that he necessarily is. I think he's just, having this massive freak out here for good reason. But yeah, we get to the point where Howard tries to spin the story of, oh, the doctor didn't want you to be disturbed at all. The hospitals are filthy places. They're filled with germs, and that's why you're here. It's sterile. It's safe. And we removed all the phones just to make sure you have the moment to recuperate and relax and you're not disturbed. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. Well, it's what happened. I need to make a call. Well, you can't.
It's also like this awesome, like, it is a recuperation sort of room sort of thing like you would see in a hospital.
Yeah, it's like a solarium or a sunroom or something like that. Yeah, it's just
but with
beautifully shot. Yeah. And yeah, it's like the most implausible story ever. And you can see Howard just breaking a little bit as he tells it. It's but
the best sort of way.
Yeah,
when he looks away or whatever.
No, he's even breaking a little bit looking at him, but Wallace is like so distraught that he doesn't exactly notice the breaks because he's absolutely freaking out. He's looking around everywhere.
Fairly jogged up.
Yeah, you got that going too. Absolutely. And yeah, Howard does turn around and start to motor away in his wheelchair. And this is where, yes, absolutely his face breaks. Yeah, the two of them, their performances are so freaking good in this part.
Oh, and I mean, only just grow with both of them. Like,
yeah.
Justin Long. I just knew you as the gay porn stuff. I know him from is Ed. I remember you as the little teen in Ed.
Well, the Apple ads back in the day too, but yeah, he's also had this track record of playing like the boyfriend or some other type of acquaintance of the main character in a lot of horror films where very bad things happen to him ultimately. Yeah, See Barbarian. It's wonderful. He is such a scumbag.
When was Die Hard 4.0? Like,
that was before this for sure, but that was closer around the time of Red State, probably. But
that's where they met and became
But cut to dinner time where Howard admonishes Wallace for not eating. And Wallace is like, well, I can't move my arms. And Howard's like, well, that's because of the morphine. And
this again, like at this point, you're starting to twig this is a horror film.
Yep.
But it's so much. I think it's so much scarier that this is a feeble old man, but realistic, than some monster or supernatural threat. It is a character, it's just
the film's fucking terrifying. And we see Wallace at this point come to terms that he has
ish.
I
think you could probably do what's done in this film.
This is a shockingly grounded, stupid movie, but ultimately, Wallace comes to terms with, Howard has immobilized him, and he says as much, and we get the itsy bitsy spider bit. Yeah, because he starts out like, it was a brown recluse. And then Howard just kind of breaks, realizing, okay, fuck it. Starts, teasing him with the itsy bitsy spider. And this is where Howard gets up and slaps the shit out of Wallace after walking the length of the dining room.
It's such a great moment because he's in a wheelchair, like he's always in the wheelchair, which is for reasons probably, which also then actually made the film better, probably. Of like, we need to work around Parks having a heart attack. Stick him in a wheelchair.
Now he's supposed to be infirm in this wheelchair and everything and not able to walk, but you see him clearly like cross and uncross his legs earlier. So it's not like he's paralyzed necessarily, but yeah, I love the bit of him.
I never noticed that he crossed and uncrossed his again. Probably another cleverly layered detail.
Yeah, but it's so good when he just stands up and then just walks the table.
The way he then walks there and knowing that, how feeble he was at the time, like, it's a menacing walk.
And the shock on Wallace's face after getting slapped.
Like, no, more like when he gets up and starts walking, it's like, shit, I don't have that advantage.
I think even more so after being struck like that. Because now it's time to get down to business. And we start to hear about the walrus suit. And whilst in the walrus suit, you must be a walrus.
Must not make human noises. Again, ripped from the ad. The original ad.
Yup. And we get Wallace's why. And... Yes, a question for the ages, right? Is man indeed a walrus at heart? Like, what the actual fuck? This is where Howard kind of goes Buffalo Bill on him just a little bit, and that Wallace starts like screaming, and Howard just kind of screams back at him, mocking him, very much like yeah, very much like the girl in the well in Silence of the Lambs and Buffalo Bill screaming down at her, just mocking her.
Were they in the middle of nowhere in Silence of the Lambs?
Not really, but the basement was so well soundproofed and everything. Yeah, it was so well soundproofed and all that.
The road even
versus this house, which much later in the story, you get all sorts of sounds that you can hear from well outside on the grounds. And you would think probably not, just given the enclosure and where it's located in the house and all of that, but whatever, we're not there yet.
There was a great story about where they shot it and the people that were around, like, Kevin Smith turns down, like, who had the house down rolling and up, and they were like, whatever, and he shoved them in the film.
We cut from here to Allie talking to someone who's out of frame about almost telling Wallace that she was cheating on him before he left, but ultimately feeling kind of vindicated because of all of his cheating.
Did I get a pregnancy vibe also maybe here?
I don't know about that.
It might have been the cheating that was pregnant. I initially read it as pregnant.
Yeah, I didn't get that vibe, but yeah, as much as she does feel vindicated, she does feel bad.
Flips into the cheating,
yeah. She still feels awful about what she's doing, even though she does feel some vindication. Reach out to hold her face, and cut to the podcast then, where Teddy tells the audience that he'll be taking Wallace's girl out while he's away.
What was it?
I think to the Getty Museum.
That was it.
Yeah. Basically, doing the date that Wallace would never want to do. Yeah. And at this point, we're not 100% that it's Teddy.
What is it? 2 hours? Like, take the time out of your day. Like,
yeah, exactly. And then they cut to the podcast signing off, and they go to play a little bit of foosball. And this is where they talk about Wallace's rampant cheating. And then back in the present, Wallace.
I thought it was quite a good thing for like a horror, like. By this point, you're not massively rooting for anyone.
No.
Like,
If
they
you didn't think that
completely
Wallace
destroyed
was a
that.
massive piece of shit, which is part of the fun of a lot of horror films, oftentimes the victims are pieces of shit or they
Oh,
do
right.
really horrible things, and you kind of root for the killer. That's
Yeah.
it's pretty
Oh, it's a
common.
trope. Okay, yeah. Again, I'm
Yeah.
not all that familiar with horror.
A lot of slasher films are like that,
Yeah.
like the Halloween films and Nightmare on Elm Street. A lot of the kids are just fucking awful. And
I
ultimately,
mean, a
the
lot of
killer
kids are.
is, yeah, they are. To be fair. Yeah.
That's probably me. You know?
But yeah, back in the present, Wallace is awoken by his cell phone with that awful, awful ringtone. And
Ralph Garman,
no, not to throw any shade at Ralph Garman. No, he's fantastic, but the ringtone is obnoxious. And he can't quite make it with the wheelchair to the phone. He absolutely misses her calls. She calls like twice too. And yeah, we go back to
But okay, who charges their cell phones above a sink in a bathroom? Like, that just seems like the most
It's weird.
dodgy place to do that. Like,
I don't think.
Like,
I think that's kind of like people that, like, for a minute they're gonna like, I'm gonna charge my cell phone in another room so that I get a more restful night of sleep. I'm not tempted to use my cell phone and blah blah blah. I know there are actually people like this
in the kitchen.
Yeah, it's
above a sink. I'm just there going like,
but it's a perfect setup too for how this plays out, Mark. Because
that phone falls, your screen's fucked. Like, that's an expensive. Like, you have a shower. Like, he could go for
I don't know. But yeah, we cut back to her on the bed talking to somebody who's unseen. And we get this wonderful editing back and forth between him trying to call her and then later Teddy. And then ultimately,
when he's got her voicemail, it's shot in such a way, I think.
She's in the background framed by the door. And you've got the phone and you see it lighting up, but the ringer's off. So you don't know that somebody's calling, or at least she doesn't, rather. No. And you can't see who she's talking to until ultimately he tries calling
him in the wheelchair. Like, it's a close shot on him. Like that. You are just expecting him to get hit over the back of the head.
That's more so when he's leaving the voicemail for Teddy.
No,
because ultimately it's the shot where you see the background behind him when he's leaving that voicemail.
Oh, yeah, I know, but that's how they play. Like, the close-up shot there, like, can be your surprise. Like, on the when he's talking,
and then ultimately you do
get hit by surprise. And you're like,
because you do see Howard step into frame behind him while he's on the phone leaving the voicemail for Teddy, cutting back and forth with also the phone going off, which is clearly Teddy's phone in the bathroom. And that is the absolute reveal then. Yes, this is Teddy. If you were so clueless that you could not tell that Teddy and Allie are fucking around on Wallace behind his back, yes, this absolutely confirms it. And
he then ignores his call.
Yep.
He sees the call and ignores it.
And you get her telling him to, go brush his teeth and come to bed because she doesn't want to just sit there crying all night. And, he steps in and goes ahead and does that. Absolute confirmation. It's perfectly edited, this back and forth. And I love the line in the voicemail. I don't want to die in Canada. I got a really good laugh out of me with that line. But yeah,
American.
How that shot is framed with him leaving the voicemail for Teddy, and you see the background behind him.
Different. Yeah, you get.
And you see Howard step into frame, and you're like, "Oh shit!" It's fucking terrifying. And then he gets clubbed by the dick bone, and you will be a walrus, or you will be nothing at all. Yeah. I fucking love it. It's so dumb, and I love it so much.
I wouldn't say dumb.
Okay. It's dumb
It's
in the
got a
best
TV
ways,
commercial
Mark.
on it. Like, come
Yep.
on. It knows what it is. It's the War
Oh,
Room
yeah.
movie.
Yeah. And we get cut to the next morning and Allie waking up and she goes to the bathroom, grabs her toothbrush, sits down on the toilet, seeing that she has a voicemail, starts listening to it. Oh, crap.
Can't really hear, like, very faintly. Quite nicely played, I think, that as well.
Yep. And we have the happy couple absolutely freaking the fuck out at this point.
You've got a voicemail too.
Cut to surgery time where Howard starts telling the tale of him being a duplicitous orphan. This is
an Batman reference with his how his parents died.
No, well, kind of, I would assume.
It was a little bit of Batman in that, wasn't there?
But the orphanage, this is very much a real thing.
No. Yeah, I know. But I mean, like the one that...
Yeah, his parents being killed in Montreal, yeah.
I was expecting to hear a pearls dropped.
Oh, God. But yeah, likely a nice little nod to Batman as well there. But also, it's just Kevin Smith once more, throwing out his disdain for the Catholic Church, because this is absolutely one of those black marks in the church's history. One of many.
Catholic Church in
Canada?
Okay.
The Catholic Church in cahoots with the Premier of Quebec, who, he was a conservative premier who served like many terms. And they had this wonderful scheme. If they turned these boys' homes into mental health institutions and they could get all this fucking money from the government then, by saying that they're mental health institutions, and then horrible, horrible shit happened to the kids that lived there. And it's fucking terrifying. As gross as all the other stories are that we know about the Catholic Church, let's put it this way. Semi-recent, investigations have uncovered between 1950 and 2019, 2,000 instances of abuse from 451 clergy in the state of Illinois alone.
All right, okay, we're not talking about the Canada stuff, like, because there's like the Guernsey homes, like where there are fields of bodies.
Yep.
I imagine there was probably from this Canada stuff as well, based on
not to mention Canada, where you had all the Indian schools, where they sent all these native kids, and horrible, horrible shit happened to them too. And that was also a thing that happened in the States. But it's
and Australia.
Yep. Pretty horrific, and the church is just famous for covering up shit like this. But yeah, obviously, Kevin Smith has a very complicated relationship with Catholicism that comes out in most of his films in one way or the other.
I would also probably say, the Catholic Church is like the Church of England, for instance, also has
also covered up a ton of shit.
It's organized religion in most religions, etc. Is a dangerous thing because it gives people power, and people tend to abuse power.
Yep.
And fucked up people abuse power in fucked up ways.
Yep. And Howard tells the story in pretty graphic detail of how he was abused by everyone that you can possibly imagine involved with this orphanage, until the moment where he escaped at age 15 and ran off to the US. And
do you think Mr. Tuskegee helped him escape, or was the janitor in the abuse?
Hard to say.
Again, it was a callback, but he never references him in the abuse, the second part.
Yeah.
He references that he was a janitor in the boys' home, but I think that must have been a nice.
I think
figure.
that's entirely likely that ultimately the person that did help him out was Mr. Tusk. And this is where the camera pulls back and we discover Wallace's bloody mouth because his tongue has been removed, and his arms sewn to his sides. It's and while this conversation, this monologue has been going on, we have been seeing all sorts of images of like walrus and human physiology, and it's all these bloody tools everywhere and just like skin hanging everywhere. It's a whole thing. It's this, if you didn't know, this is a fucking horror movie at this point.
It also looks so realistic, like the way it's done. I just think for such an it's not Jason. It's not whatever. Like, it seems plausible. It probably isn't, but the way they show it, etc. Robert Kirkman is like that. It just, and it's stitching. The stitchings.
Oh yeah,
like the big thing. Yeah, everything. Yeah,
it's a lot.
Feels right. Feels right for like the situation, or is it like really, really fucked up? This is not right, but yeah.
Cut to Allie and Teddy driving to the airport where they're in contact with some type of authority figure in Canada, where they're trying to explain what's going on, and Allie makes the mistake of mentioning the Nazi party, and Teddy's like, "No, wait, spell it," and she's hung up on it, of course.
Nazi.com.
Yeah,
they hung up on me.
Yeah, shocker. But and then we get Wallace in the walrus costume.
Walrus now.
Yeah. I mean, he's not exactly full walrus, but his body sure as shit is. And he's in his enclosure. He's told by Howard that walruses never cry.
With the chain wrapped around his
lower extremities. Yes. Yeah.
Fin.
Yeah. Flipper. Oh God, it's graphic. The suit is made from human skin, clearly, because there's like ears and other things like all over it.
I think it's from his skin.
It's not all his skin. There's definitely some patches that have a bit more melanin in them.
Are there? But I mean, like the ear one, like it isn't on the side of his face. Like the ear one isn't like it. It could be his ears, etc.
It could be his, but
doing that,
there's no way this entire suit is made from his skin alone. There is so much of it. It's a lot. It's pretty clear later on that this has been
but then also that doesn't play into your "it's not his skin" theory, because
I think quite a bit of it has been saved and
maybe that's
processed. But we'll get there.
Botched jobs.
Yeah. So Howard kind of monologues while Allie and Teddy are you got the two planes of action here, because he's talking to his Mr. Tusk here, and we've got Allie and Teddy at the car agency, as well as the H-bar, showing Wallace's picture around. And it's on an iPad, and it's like the dumbest picture of Wallace ever. It's so fucking funny. And ultimately, we move on to them at the police station playing the voicemails for Detective Frank Garman.
Yep. Ralph Garman.
Yeah.
He gets dialogue in this film.
Yes, it's certainly a step up from Red State. He's moving up in the world.
I loved his Red State character.
Me too. He was the way terrifying in Red State. He was menacing
without saying a word.
Oh, I know. It was so good. But I love him as the detective in this because he's Canadian as fuck. And
again, Ralph Garman, master of voices. That's where he came from.
Oh, yeah.
Like LA Talk Radio, whatever, morning radio. And on K-Rock until he got fired. And then all the stuff he did with Kevin Smith. Right.
But he tells the couple that there is no Howard Howe in Manitoba. And they're going to file a missing persons report, just like in the States, same process. And then
Again, a little bit of a logic problem there, I think.
Yeah, because typically somebody's got to be missing for a while.
Database that should have come up with the stuff that comes in later.
Yeah, exactly. Unless, this is very, very much local police and it's the whole, these jurisdictions don't talk to each other.
Bullshit, don't you? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's much more of a problem in the States, I would think, than Canada, but apparently it's a thing in Canada too. I don't know.
It probably is. Again, states' rights and all that bullshit.
Could be, but
I know he comes from Quebec, right? So it'd be rich. So the system's probably.
Oh yeah, Lapointe. He does come from Quebec, but we'll get to him. But this is where Detective Garman and the couple, they're talking about the disturbing bit in the voicemail about the leg, and that causes Garman to think of something that's something from the past. There was a guy, a former inspector from Quebec who had come by not long ago investigating a serial killer, which, doesn't exist in Canada. He makes this crack about the only serial killer we know about is the guy who took down all the Captain Crunch at the local convenience store, the pothead. But ultimately...
It could have been a Timbits joke. I think that would have been better as the Timbits joke.
But. Yeah, me too. But... And they do bring up Tim Hortons reference a little bit later, but he digs out the card from the inspector and jots down the phone number and gives it to the couple. There is a wonderful moment here too, where he asks them about Wallace and, what kind of guy was he? Was he, a cheater? Was he, and you see their faces just fall and they're like, no, he wasn't.
When she
like that.
Yeah,
but both of their faces are like,
yes, but it's not that, so I'm not going to say that because otherwise it will.
Yep, exactly. That's going to make everything just seem like he's
run off with a woman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but
he might have been enough of a dickhead to have actually left him those voicemails to run off with a woman.
Yeah,
beyond
or just to fuck with them.
Of that character, I don't think.
Yeah, or just to fuck with them for the sake of the podcast, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I could buy that too from this character.
Well, no, because he didn't get to the podcast recording.
Yeah.
He
passes the number along and back to Tunless Wallace screaming at Howard. And we get the moment where he is about to be taught to swim. And it's just Howard grabbing the controls. The chain is on a winch and it pulls Wallace into the water. And can you imagine trying to swim in this walrus suit? It's
also,
no, you're going to sink.
But they were absolutely petrified to have Michael Parks.
Oh, I bet.
Because it's really fucking dangerous to fall in.
I would think they would be concerned just about Justin Long in the walrus suit in the water. But yeah, this is
again, she did some of this stuff as well.
Oof. And this is where he sinks under the water.
And I mean, from this point on, his acting is his eyes.
Oh yeah,
Justin Long's
absolutely.
Is his eyes
and his movements. His movements are really interesting as well. But yeah, he sinks under the water and then opens his eyes, and this is where he discovers his predecessors rotting in this pool.
And many of them. But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They've all still got their suits on. So
but
skin from other people that
we find out that there's 23 victims before him. How many full walruses do you think were ultimately made?
Yeah, but I mean, that's 23 that the detectives know about, and this man is
exactly
ghost, whatever.
Ultimately, I think he has saved a good amount of human skin,
and they never found a body of. And
yeah,
they find bodies again. I don't think they don't know about those ones in the bottom of the pool. They know about other ones where they found the bodies.
Yeah.
is probably the 23, not the ones at the bottom of the pool.
Well, and they talk about how they're not full bodies; they're skinned and ultimately, mutilated as well.
Stages, because you've got to imagine a fair amount of those people die in shock.
Yeah,
Like
and
when he's doing those things, when he's halfway through and then he just discards them or pins them and then discards them and uses the skin for
when
the next
he's
one
done with them, ultimately, when he's finished with them. We cut here to our introduction to Guy Lapointe, who's been hunting this guy for the past 10 years. Mr. Lapointe, of course, is played by Johnny Depp, not credited as Johnny Depp, but clearly Johnny Depp. And wow, is his accent inconsistent throughout this film? It's
you will find out. You're like, and there's layers and there's things to come and all the rest of it.
So
also, easy get, because at this point, Lily Rose Depp and other films was not old enough, so had, like, by under law, American film law, had to have a guardian on set in order to film. So it was like, you're already
kind of
here,
a perfect situation.
Again, this, unfortunately, I'm going to have to spoil the best points of it, but you can see it on this, and unfortunately, my spot is a little bit offside. Did you notice his nose?
I wasn't paying as much attention to that as I was his eyes being slightly not looking in the same direction.
Oh no, I mean, and like, this was all Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
So he has a dick nose, and there's a blue vein down the side. There's there's literally a thing. I've seen yoga hosers. He brought his own makeup out and prosthetics onto, like, literally for it. It's like, Kevin was like, "What? Okay, fine, let's do it." And it's a lot more pronounced than a dick nose. So that was like his thing for the character was, I want him to have a dick nose.
So we're introduced to Mr. Lapointe at this fast food restaurant that's by the airport, and the trio are sitting there having their conversation, and of course the employee is played by Jennifer Schwalbach Smith,
who is playing actually Harley's mum. Yeah,
that's funny.
It comes up in Yoga Hosers, but it's the same thing. It like all connects together. Like, it's actually playing Harley's mum.
Yeah, and as he eats this massive meal of sliders and fries and milkshakes and everything else, he kind of tells the story about how there's 23 victims, how there's probably soon to be a 24th if your Wallace is actually captured by this guy. He talks about how he's
probably already dead.
Yeah, how ultimately his buddy's back on the force. They used to call this guy the first wife, because because you can't go anywhere. What else? Yeah, you can't talk.
You can't go anywhere,
and he doesn't fuck you. Because
plays into this character, and like his backstory and all the rest of it, of like weird. Obviously there's sexual abuse and that lot as well, but like, to him, he's like, he wouldn't propagate the abuse that he received. Nope. He's applying different abuse in a way or whatever.
I also love Lapointe's description of what he's doing to these people, about how he sews their arms to their sides like a crucified T-Rex, and he throws his arms up there. Yep.
Again, like the acting, like, fucking Johnny Depp is in a fucking Kevin Smith film. Like,
so weird.
And like, was not promoted. Like, I don't think it was in any of the trailers or anything.
I don't think so either. I don't remember.
Like, it was just like, what the fuck is that Johnny Depp in a Kevin Smith film? Like, again, Johnny Depp, like, at this point as well, was like Pirates, not Johnny. Like, was like, what?
We weren't quite down on him at this point. Yeah, because it was 10 years ago. But it's at this point where he invites the...
Yeah, you don't expect a giant actor, like, suddenly for a giant actor to come out of nowhere. Well, I mean, later films like reboot and all the rest of it, but
Yeah.
certainly not to this level because we are introduced to our fifth main character at this point.
So it's at this point in the conversation with the couple where he invites them to lean in, and he has to ask them repeatedly to do so he can tell them the story about how 2 years back he thinks he actually met this guy. And we cut to the flashback where, of course, the little the little byline says 2 years back, and it's in Quebec. And
it was about, and he tells you already before you cut to the flashback, the character, which is, I think, I'm fairly sure, is about a hockey player who went missing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was the hockey player? Gregory Gumtree. Yes, we get the Gregory coming back, and Gumtree, of course.
No, it's Gregory Gumtree, isn't it? But I think this is also maybe a reference to Kevin Smith's cancelled film Hit Somebody. Because then the Goon came out. It was making the same. And he literally had Sean Scott Williams to play it. So actually, no, but it's Gregory Gumtree. So no, that's where they're.
Yep. So you get this little cabin with clearly Howard sitting on the front porch, and
did you notice what was hanging?
I wasn't paying attention to that. No, what's hanging up there?
The server behind him.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
It comes back later, which is the Anastasia life preserver.
Yep. So you get this very awkward conversation with, obviously, Howe is trying to play another character, the name of the doctor that he mentioned earlier in the film. And he tries to play off you're with the police. Oh, well, I had called a few days ago because I've got this brown recluse in my outhouse, and and he tries to play himself off as sort of this backwoodsy hick type character. And
I do the.
Oh yeah. I help coach the little,
But no, I don't coach.
He helps out. It's like the Pee Wee hockey team or whatever,
and sweep up after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And LaPlante is like, well, I'm not here to take care of the spider.
No, he's like, have you come to kill the brown recluse?
Right. It's like, can't discharge my weapon, and unfortunately, I'm not big enough to also deal with
the house.
Yes, absolutely. Yep, and we get
the way that it's not like, hey, do you want to come in? It's like, oh, well, I've done this, are you here for?
Yeah, he's just trying to get him into a situation where he can get one over on him, and
he's trying to get him to go, oh, I'll help you with this, okay?
Yeah,
as opposed to come in, where it's like, oh, I'm hunting a serial killer. Maybe I'm not coming in. Like it's a very.
He's trying to disarm him. He's trying to, exactly. And Guy tells the couple how, little did I know that I was probably, standing outside of the cabin where, Gregory Gumtree was being kept. What's the poutine restaurant that Hal mentions? Poutini Weenie. Was there ever a Poutini Weenie?
I don't know. But all the other stuff wasn't real. So
right. Yeah, he even says as much. Was there a Poutini Weenie? I don't know.
But then, you're suddenly like going, well, was the Ernest Hemingway story real? Like,
right?
Was that something different? That bottle was something like, again, like this is a master storyteller.
Oh yes. They talk about how they found fragments of Gumtree's tibia in the mouth holes, because he talks about all the victims have a couple of holes in their mouths, and how the other people on the force they thought might have something to do with like meat hooks or whatever holding them up while he worked on him, but he wasn't so sure.
But you've seen it earlier, him carving
the
tusks.
Yep, and polishing that bone when Wallace was waking up, and because he's turning the bones into tusks. Yep.
Which again is quite good, like, because again, like rejection of, like, if you're trying to do things to people, the more that you use
Yep.
of their own DNA, like, is less likely to get rejected. And
Yep. And before he was let go, he went to
you don't
visit
do this to
Gumtree's
people.
mother.
This is not meant to
And
how to do.
when visiting with her, she made the comment that this man is making a monster. And of course, it's this super like French Canadian accent that he's using for Gumtree's mother. But yeah, cut to Howard and Wallace, where he's got the wonderful line, I've only ever known a human to be an ocean of shit. And there's something more to it, and I can't quite remember what it is, but
Just enthralling. Like,
yeah.
Even when he's talking about an ocean of shit, you're just
it's hypnotic, right?
Yeah.
It's
the tone, it's the patter, like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
There was a
that
great
cadence of his speech. Yeah.
The making of Red State, like, podcast series that he did where they got Michael Parks on, he like tells a lot of his life story. It is that. Like, it is his cadences and stuff. It just is like you just sat there going, wow, like, yeah, tell me a story. Like, anything.
Yeah.
Tell me about you walking down to the local shop and buying a bottle of, or whatever.
So we talk about Justin Long doing so much of his acting with his eyes throughout the rest of this film.
Yeah.
But this is where his physicality comes through for me, because it's mackerel time. And, bon appetit, Monsieur Tusk. And when he slaps that mackerel down on the rock and Wallace just turns towards it with this big jolt.
I mean, how long, like, you haven't seen him be fed in any way, shape, or
form? Oh, yeah. Well, they
but
talk about how you must be, very hungry by now.
Yeah.
And yeah, just the way he snaps to the direction of the mackerel is, again, it does it for me as far as his physical acting as the walrus. And oh God, what does Howard say after he steps behind the door and opens up the porthole? Feed. And he finally does. He I don't know how easily you could, without a tongue and with having to, kind of work your mouth around these tusks as well, trying to jam part of this mackerel into your face. Can't be easy.
It's fairly light. It's not heavy, like when you like fish, is it? Like, you could probably suck that up,
I suppose.
like,
and
once
they
separated it. You got your tusks as well, don't you? Like,
yeah, again, it's got to be difficult, but also depends on how hungry you are. You know what I mean? You're going to make that shit happen, right? Yeah. And then this is where we've got Guy Lapointe and Allie and Teddy getting into the rental car together. And I love all of his comments about, oh, this is, a really nice model. Did you prepay for the gas? And yeah. And this is where he's like,
for a late ad lib.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's part of Kevin actually letting you not follow the script.
Yeah. And this is where he asks him, okay, now in order to track him down, I need to know who knows Wallace the best. And now he's like, oh, it's me. And
you're a bit like, does she? But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, okay, well, when people go out on a road trip, people have patterns. There's certain things that people do. This is where we get the Tim Hortons line about, I always get a double with, like 8 sugars and a little splash of milk. And, some people, have to get, this and that and whatever. And she has to think for a minute, but she's like, oh, wait a minute. He always has to get one of those cartoonishly over large, soft drinks from a convenience store. Cut to the A to Z. And yeah. We got Colleen, and they show the photo, and it's like, it's Mr. Mustache. I love this bit too, where Harley Quinn calls for Lily Rose to come on over and take a look, and she's walking so slowly, and she's like, I'm coming. It's just like robotically slow. And yeah, they look at the photo and it's like, yeah, that is Mr. Mustache. And yeah, this is where we're treated to Wallace's horrible interaction with them from a few nights ago. And it's like the overly long version of it where they're mocking him with the little pocket combs, making fun of his mustache. And, you know, he's having more of a conversation with them, how he used the woman who's standing there at the counter as something to put the notepad on to write something. But ultimately, this is where I find this bit more of this is their unreliable narration, in that the line about how, you know, these two wonderful angels and so on and so forth, even though they do, you know, bring it across that he was an absolute dick. It's just, there's so much more to it. And there's things like, okay, if he was being an absolute dick, well, sure, it may have been sarcastic. No, he never would have said all of this. And he maybe didn't say all of this. And we cut back to the present day and they're like, do you still have this notepad? And he grabs a pencil and he starts doing the little rub on it to, you know, get what had been written down. And this is where Teddy's like, oh, it's like the Big Lebowski. And LaPlante's like, you know, funnily enough, this is where I learned it. That's, wow, isn't this interesting? It's, and you get the address, but a noticeable lack of dick picture on the pad, like the Big Lebowski. That would have been great if that had been there too. But yeah, I love this a little bit. It's
Again, watch Yoga Hosers. It's a great film.
That I might have to finally break and do that. Yeah. And then we cut back to Pippi Hill, where Howard takes Wallace swimming. And, you know, little by little, you see Wallace, you know, more than shirtless.
Yeah, well, you can find that out late. Fairly
soon.
When he shoves his head underneath, gives another aspect to it.
Yeah. But yeah, little by little, you are seeing Wallace become Mr. Tusk. It's happening.
He's also starting to get maybe a little bit Stockholmed as well. Like, his provider of food, like, he needs to keep him happy because he knows that all of these other ones died.
Yep.
Like, I have no way out at this point.
Yep. I need to acquiesce.
Like, I need to, like, keep being fed, otherwise I'm going to die. Like,
and
play along for a bit.
Yep. This is where, after he shoves him under and everything, where Howard finally comes clean about
his eyes when he's under, like, is.
Oh, I know. It's terrifying. Yep.
Well, no, it's terrifying. I was so terrifying.
This is where we get Howard finally admitting and coming clean about eating Mr. Tusk just the moment before he was rescued.
An hour before they showed up. Yeah.
Yep. He's, you know, got Mr. Tusk's blood all over him as he's waving them down, and he realizes it as the searchlight finally finds him. And
doesn't he pick up the life preserver or something as well, or something? And it's
he's like waving his arms and shit and all that. Yeah, it's but yeah, he's so just the moment before he was rescued.
Yeah, I may, you know, river of shit or whatever it was, you know.
Yeah. He wants Mr. Tusk to have the opportunity to fight back. And this is where we get the ass shot, because clearly he's been naked in the water with him. You know, he's throwing his towel on. You know,
nice
ass, looking good for his age. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
This is where we get the trio finding Wallace's rental. And LaPlante's like, nah, he's not in there. Don't worry about him. And time to break out the guns.
Also, like, yeah, come on. And this was clearly his base of operations, probably for most of this. Like he may have then gone on to satellite ones, like
Yeah,
the part that you saw, but this is
like so
where
serial killers do ultimately.
everyone
Yeah,
came out, like came back where his like thing. He ain't
yeah,
like he's killed 23 people.
yep.
He knows
Yeah,
what like how deep a lake is to dump a rental car in. It's not going to be sticking out the lake. Another
yeah,
one of my little like, not as close
yeah.
to home. Like
I find this more of a nod
unreal.
towards Psycho ultimately because you had the same situation on
Oh, okay.
vehicles sticking out of the
Yeah,
water.
that's probably why a lot of the plot points where I had problems with, you're like, oh, this is a nod to a horror film. Not,
It's all fairly tropey at the end of
yeah.
the day, right? So this is where
Well, yeah, but
LaPlante,
again, this is like Kevin Smith making his first full-out horror film. Like
yeah,
he's gonna throw in every. It's a Kevin Smith
yep,
film. It's reference central. He's gonna throw in every shot reference that he can to another horror film.
yep. So this is where LaPlante is going to break out the guns and he offers them to the Americans and they're like, huh? And Teddy is like, no, I do not want a gun. He asks him, what kind of American are you? This is where Allie just yells at him, take the fucking gun. And LaPlante's like, yes, take the fucking gun. He's like, I'll take the big one. He picks up the shotgun. And this is where we get Fleetwood Mac's Tusk kicking off. And it's so good.
I always said listen to some more of the podcast because I bet you he says somewhere how much he paid for that.
Probably. I'm sure it was not cheap.
It probably is Tusk a big Fleetwood Mac song?
It was big at the time. It's from 79. It's interesting. It's orchestration because you've got the USC marching band playing on it. It's interesting song. But it's got that driving drum beat to it too. It's great. It's perfect.
Yeah, like
for
the
this.
music, like there isn't that much of it, but like it's so well played. Again, like,
Oh yeah,
like, in the same way,
it
it's not.
propels the rest this final
It's like
bit of this movie.
like is on the note, is actually like what was
Oh,
it?
yeah.
Tusk. Is it literally called Tusk? It's literally called Tusk. Yeah,
Exactly.
Like, here's your theme music now.
Yep. Cut to Wallace finding himself squaring off against Howard in his own walrus suit this time. He must choose to die or fully become Mr. Tusk.
A reference from the podcast as well,
Oh yeah.
He's got smaller tusks, and they're in the suit, they're not into his jaw.
Right. They're kind of like at his forehead, really.
Well, no, they're not. He pulls it down, they're at his thing, but they're wobbly, like they're not affixed,
right,
etc. Like they aren't weapons, really.
Yep.
In his suit.
Yeah, this is where we start getting the two planes of action as the walruses square off and start fighting, and we get Ellie.
The walruses fighting on the projector in the background.
Yeah, behind them. Yeah,
like it's just like if you don't know how walruses fight, this is how walruses fight. So this is like what you're seeing here of like, just in case, like.
Yep.
So this doesn't look absolutely shit. Like this is actually what it looks like.
So we're getting the two planes of action of them fighting and Allie, Teddy, and LaPlante exploring the property. And Wallace must be extra loud at this point because they can hear him outside on the grounds. And Allie like calls out for him. And
but it is a big, like that room is just like concrete.
Yeah.
And it's like a concrete domey, like whatever. Like that would be quite a
soundproofing thing, I think.
No. A sound amplifying thing.
I don't know because I feel like there's so much concrete that ultimately, it's just not going to get out. But maybe there's like a lot of venting. I don't know. Regardless, we get either you go full walrus or this, Howard says to him and charges him again. And then this is when we get Allie and Teddy finding the operating room, and they see the legs sticking out of the ice bucket. Yeah, it's good. Let's see.
Is that another reference?
I don't know that that's necessarily a reference. It could be, but
Yeah, it's probably one used very often. So
yeah. And then I love all the shots of them exploring the house, and like the one where they're looking over the stair rail, and the way the camera kind of pulls back from them and all that. That's
sure
kind of
it's a bit
cool.
Scooby Doo, maybe. I don't know, or something.
It might be referencing a specific
Yeah,
film, but I love the way it's shot. It's
yeah,
very
it's
cool.
very
Um,
stylized and very
yep,
like yeah.
and it feels very 70s actually.
And
Um,
also, like, where's Guy Lapointe at this point? Like, Dave Aronoff.
yep.
Come back
He's
later.
clearly somewhere else. Um, and this is where Howard starts to stand upright and break free of the
Well,
flesh
no.
food.
No. Justin Long starts winning.
Mm.
Justin Long starts posing an actual threat to him. Like, he's going for it, has gone full Wurf, and he's going for it. So he
But
stands
yes,
up.
he stands up and all the seams kind of break free and he raises the dick bone to strike. But that's when Wallace
I'm
plunges
not
the tusk into his foot.
I'm not sure. It looked more like an axe than a dick bone, I think.
I think it was the dick bone.
Was it? Okay, it may have been. I couldn't really work out what it. But
you know what? I need a count of how many times we've said dick bone in this podcast because I'm sure it's a lot. But ultimately,
I'm not saying certain words because it will get you like shadow banned on YouTube. So,
but ultimately, yes, Wallace brings his tusk down into Howard's foot. And then Howard, of course, screams and then falls onto his back, and Wallace starts to stab him repeatedly with his tusks.
And then you get the fucking shot of him up with the tusks,
the bloody tusks, and
and
we get Teddy and Allie blasting open this doorway because they can hear him behind this wall. And Howard says to him, "You are my Mr. Tusk." Yeah, and they kind of the couple bursts into the enclosure and they find Wallace gone full walrus. Yep. And she cries out, and we get Lapointe walking slowly in behind them, kind of covered in shadow with the shotgun. And he starts to raise the shotgun, and you hear her scream out "no," and we cut to black.
Well, no, he points. He's fully points it. You're just expecting the click,
but you don't hear it, and you get the text on the black screen 1 year later. And it's Allie and Teddy pulling up to an animal sanctuary in Manitoba. She's
that was way too close to the visitor center.
It's very weird. But
it's proper weird. You'd put that out the back, like you don't like.
Yeah, you're gonna have that pretty well hidden. Yes,
be able to lean over the railings of the visitor center, like, or maybe you would if you're a really fucked up animal sanctuary, but
ultimately, as they exit the car,
no other enclosures or anything else.
Yeah,
no.
She clearly has this package wrapped in newspaper that she's cradling as they get out of the car, but you know what it is. So yeah, they get up to the handrail there, and you see the little enclosure down below where it's the life preserver still, and the beach ball and all that, and it's this little igloo.
And then all of the little, did you not see all of the
drink cups everywhere? Yep. I love how those are just everywhere throughout the film.
And
it's so good. Yep.
As well.
Yep.
He's been out on, goes right onto them and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, she calls out for Wallace.
You've got to give the set designers in this film so much credit.
Oh yeah,
it is so everything is so the bottle in the case and everything that is
everything so down to the little water closet with the toilet paper cozy and everything. She calls out to Wallace. He doesn't respond. She opens the paper and reveals a great big old fish. She throws it into the enclosure.
Come on. give him a bloody burger or something.
I mean, that would be nice. Yeah. Yeah. But she knows. She knows.
Sushi, for fuck's sake. If he likes fish, give him some fucking sushi. Like,
even some gas station sushi. Come on.
Give him gas station. Because my point is going to be like, what does raw fish do? Like eating a raw mackerel or something like that. Like, can we digest that shit?
I don't know. There's plenty of whitefish that's in, raw whitefish in sushi. It's not my favorite. I am much more of a tuna or a salmon kind of person myself.
I don't like fish, so I don't know
but,
how you can do it. But it just seems, and also like, but if he's I want because the bones would go.
I know. But he's pretty well gone full walrus. Yes. Now, when she throws
he's gone full walrus, but give him fucking sushi so it doesn't fuck up his insides and end up with diverticulitis.
That would be a kindness, I suppose. But yeah, it's not until they throw the fish down there that he emerges, and he snarfs some of it down. And they call out to him, Teddy telling him he doesn't need to hide from them. And he finally looks up at them. And that's when we cut to a flashback from the day before he left for Canada. It's an expanded version of the scene where Allie is telling him a story about her grandfather after her grandmother died, and how she told him not to cry, and how he told her back, no, it's good to cry. What separates us from the animals and proves we have a soul. Back to the present, she's crying her eyes out, staring at Wallace down in the enclosure.
Yeah, and, with guilt.
Yeah. Yeah. She tells him that she loves him, and he just stares and moans at her. And Teddy just leads her
that's
away.
Also fucked up from her. I
think.
It
is.
Like telling
him
telling him that she loves him is giving him hope that he does not deserve. That is fucked up.
But it might be the kind of hope that he needs to live. I don't know, because Teddy leads her away. And we cut back to Wallace, and tears start to roll down his face, and Tusk's. And then the camera pans over to the waiting pool, and credits. And then mid-credits, we get audio from the podcast.
Credit is like, I can't get all of their names. So Haley Joel Osment, Justin Long, Michael Parks. I can't remember her name. And then Gila Point. And then to your other credits. And then when you get to the actors credits, Gila Point. Johnny Depp was literally not credited on this now. It might have been a requirement for Johnny Depp being in this film. I think he's credited. I'm fairly sure he's credited on Yoga Hosers, but again, it's like, my daughter's in it. I'm here anyway. Like, okay,
yeah.
Can I have a dick nose, please? Okay. Dick nose wasn't good enough. I'm bringing my makeup artist to the next film, so I can. I'm prosthetics for the next film, so I can have a really big, proper dick nose.
I really do appreciate that they bring the original podcast recording into the credits here.
Yeah, it's heavy. Yeah, I've been listening to it before this. I've got a little bit more, but yeah.
I mean, for those of us that, hadn't listened to the podcast before seeing this movie, I think that's fun.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it is now behind the paywall at kevinsmithclub.com. Well worth your subscription and all the rest of it. Episode 257, The Walrus and the Carpenter, is a fantastic listen. He lays out so many things about the film. A couple of different things is don't care about the outside, don't show it. Well, you need that for your third act tension, so maybe we'll pull back on that one. John Cusack is the lodger. He's done some horror films. The podcast was literally also recorded. Oh, 1 second.
Audio listeners, Mark has gone to grab something slightly out of his reach.
Yeah. Was literally the day he submitted his script for Clerks 3.
Right. Right.
And thank God they, it was like, and he literally says, throw out the script to Clerks 3. Just submitted it that day. Thankfully they did. And we got the greatest movie of all time, Clerks 3.
Clerks 3 is a very well made film.
Greatest movie of all time. Greatest
Yep.
movie of all time.
If you have any affinity for any of the Tusk universe, you are going to cry your fucking eyes out watching that movie. But
I mean,
this one's not done yet because
can I have that as my next horror film?
I don't know that counts, Mark.
I mean, come on. Ugh, that was feeling shit. Right.
Oh, it's a very good movie though. But yes, this film is not quite done yet because we do get a post-credits scene. We have
where Guy Lapointe was.
Yep, Guy Lapointe with a few digestive issues because he never should have had that final slider.
Second slider, yeah.
Yeah. At least it wasn't the poutine because that just gives him the horrible shit. So now I can mess up some poutine. That's some good stuff.
No, you can't.
Why not?
Well, not unless you're in Canada, you can't.
You can make your own poutine, dude.
Okay. Well, mate, you can't get the poutine cheese, right? It's illegal.
Cheese curds. Yes, you can buy cheese curds.
I knew. I thought it was illegal.
No, I've never heard such a thing. But that said, yes, you can buy cheese curds. They're quite prevalent in Wisconsin, actually.
Are they the cheese curds? I think there is a difference. I believe.
Whatever. Cheese curds are going to be cheese curds and fries and gravy. Let's do it. But yeah, that's Tusk, man. That's
entry one to the Great North trilogy, or whatever, Great White North.
Yeah. What is it? True North?
True North trilogy, yeah.
True North trilogy. There we go. Yeah, I have the worst time remembering that too. But
Moose Jaws.
Yeah, looking forward to Moose Jaws. Yeah. It's there are some resources that still say 2023. That sure as shit isn't going to happen.
No,
but
he's literally filming. I might get to see some filming of Kevin Smith, maybe, possibly. His cinema. He's filming the 420 movie currently, or will be very, very shortly at his cinema in Red Bank, New Jersey. I'm going to go visit.
There you go.
Very cool. Stash and the quick stop. It might be the reason I'm flying to New York. Literally is the reason. And Beast Burger as well in the American.
Mark, soak up the experience, please.
Yeah.
So Mark, final.
That's next year's filming movie, so it'll be 2025.
God, that's a shame. I hope it's not that long, but it probably will be. Mark, any final thoughts on Tusk?
I mean, creative, it's again, we saw it with Red State. It was just an extension of Kevin Smith just getting creative, and I only think it has helped. And again, also his, I don't want to be a filmmaker or all the rest of it. All of his implosion there of but then, and Tusk I think was one of the films that really brought him back after Red State and all the rest of it.
It was his film after Cop Out too. So very much brought it back into
he was
a serious conversation.
Being on the podcast, and he was like, I need to make this movie because no one else is going to make this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the world is a better place for this movie being in it. Because this was, I believe, Michael Park's last performance in a film. There may have been the cameo or something, but and again, Red State,
and what a performance! Come on,
they gave Michael Parks, who is undoubtedly a fantastic actor who got completely and utterly blacklisted in Hollywood, didn't get to do what he loved and had to do other things and all the rest of it. Got got to let him deliver some performances to modern audiences that they would see, and like bring him back into the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
And the reason he got blackballed was because he spoke out about, he spoke out about Me Too in the 60s or 70s, and therefore got blackballed, like about directors abusing their power and being really shitty to co-stars and all the rest of it.
Something very, very relevant today.
Yeah. And again, obviously something you would be heralded for today, but you got kicked out of the industry back then. So, it was lovely to let him have those final, yes, I am a fantastic actor. I deserved a fucking Oscar, all that, here are the performances, and I cannot wait for Long Lonesome Highway from Josh Roush to come out. The story of his life. It is going to
be cool. That's absolutely going to be worth a watch. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's got everyone in. If you can get credits, he will do it. But
and honestly, Mark, this film is absolutely worth a rewatch for many. I'm very thankful that we had the opportunity to do this, because I did not have a very wonderful opinion about this film. Like I said, I'd only seen it the one time before this, and I just don't have good memories of it. Either
you probably went in expecting a Kevin Smith film, and
maybe, or just something that was more of a straight up horror film and less of what we got. Who knows? But yeah, I was not overly enamored with this in my first watch through. But now, having seen this a couple of times over the past couple of days, I very much appreciate this film so much more.
So much to it, especially when you when you actually know where it's going. There's so much laid out.
Yeah,
it's like a fucked up Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
Like, go back and watch season 1 of Ted Lasso. You will see so many little things in the background.
Oh yeah,
didn't realize meant anything.
Oh yeah,
that then become big things. Like, this film is a lot of that. Like, when you know where it's going, there's so much foreshadowing that you don't even realize until you're 30 minutes into the film what film you're watching. Again, like Red State.
Yeah, that as well. Yeah. Well, Mark, if you'd like, where can people find you?
I'm still at the Indie Boy 1 on Twitter for now. I'm probably not going to re-platform. I'm probably just going to disappear into the ether.
Yeah.
There will be a community Zoom in September. Again, unfortunately, it's on the Twitter, but you can load it in your browser, whatever. There'll be a link posted there. You don't need to be on Twitter to see it.
Hopefully I can swing by for at least a few hours. My work schedule is shit on the weekends for the month of September, but it is what it is.
I've got your dates, so it'll probably be try to be tied in with you and everyone else that I can do it. And
it'll be fun regardless. It's always good to see the regular crowd for those. So looking forward to that, man. Well, again, thank you again for coming on. It's always appreciated. The conversation is always good. So it's
thank you for saving that 39
37. Yeah. Things may not have necessarily been recorded. It's 37, not necessarily recorded in a row, but released. It will be released as the 37.
I literally pulled him to make sure it was.
And I appreciate you for that. I really do.
I'm going to be cool, Greg.
Yep. Yep.
Cool,
but there you go, man. That was a fun one too. Those of you who have, thank you. But thanks again, Mark. This has been Murders with Mertens, a horror film podcast. Thank you for letting us tickle your ear holes. Please like, share, and subscribe if you are so inclined. I'll be back soon enough with another episode. But until next time, stay spoopy, everyone.